I remember noticing the tone of the message before I registered the words, Christmas Eve. It would mean a lot if you came. My mother had added that last sentence. She only used it when she wanted compliance to feel like kindness. I hadn't been home in 3 years, not because I was busy, at least, not in the way they would understand, but because every visit eventually narrowed me into something smaller than I was. A version of me they found easier to hold. I typed I'll be there before I could reconsider. Not out of obligation, curiosity maybe. Or something quieter than that. The clothes mattered more than I expected. I stood in front of my closet, past rows of tailored suits and jackets that carried other people's assumptions, respect, competence, control. I ignored all of them. Instead, I chose a coat I hadn't worn in years, slightly worn at the cuffs, neutral enough to disappear. It wasn't a lie, it was a memory. By the time I parked outside the house, I felt like I'd already stepped backward into an older version of myself. The one they still believed in. The door opened before I knocked. My sister hugged me first. Brief, careful. She smelled like something expensive and precise. You made it, she said, like she hadn't been sure. I said I would. She pulled back just enough to look at me, noticing, measuring. I recognized the expression. It was the same one she used when evaluating risk. Inside, nothing had changed. Same lighting, same furniture arranged with the same quiet insistence that things stay where they belong. Dinner was already in motion. Conversations layered over each other, but they all bent, eventually toward her. She just closed another deal last week. My father said to no one in particular, but loud enough for everyone. My sister smiled, modest in the practiced way of someone used to being admired. I sat where I always used to sit. No one told me to. They didn't have to. For a while, no one asked me anything real. Just the usual, still painting. Keeping busy? Question shaped like concern but hollow in the center. I'm working, I said. That's good, my mother replied quickly. Staying occupied is important. Occupied. I let the word sit there. No one challenged it. The comments didn't come all at once. They never do. They arrived gently. A suggestion that I could pivot. A reminder that stability matters at this stage. My sister offering to connect me with someone in a more structured environment. Each one landed softly enough to ignore, but together they built something dense in the air. Not hostility, certainty. They had already decided who I was. I found myself watching them more than listening. The way my father leaned forward when my sister spoke. The way my mother nodded before the end of her sentences, as if agreement was automatic. I tried to remember when that shift had happened. When risk became irresponsibility, when uncertainty became failure. Maybe it had always been there. The paper appeared midway through dinner. My mother placed it near my plate with a kind of careful hesitation, like she was offering help she didn't want to force. It came to the house, she said. We thought you should see it. I didn't touch it immediately. I didn't need to. I already knew what it was. Things like this, they can be handled, she added, her voice softening in a way that felt rehearsed. If you need support. I picked up the notice slowly, scanning just enough to confirm the shape of it. Late rent. Final warning. Formal language doing its best to sound impersonal. No one spoke while I read, but I could feel their attention sharpen, waiting for something. An explanation, maybe. Or an admission. I placed the paper back on the table. It's fine, I said. My father exhaled, almost a sigh. Fine isn't how this works. You have to be realistic. I am. My sister tilted her head slightly. Then why not let someone help you? It wasn't a challenge. It was worse. It was genuine. For a moment, I considered explaining. Not everything. Just enough to disrupt the shape they'd built around me. But I realized sitting there that it wouldn't matter. Information wasn't the problem. Interpretation was. They didn't need truth. They needed coherence. My phone buzzed against the table. I almost ignored it. But the name on the screen made me pause. I answered without standing. Yes, the voice on the other end was steady, professional. A brief update. Numbers, confirmation. Then a question that required a decision. I listened. I asked one clarifying detail. Proceed, I said. But keep the structure as discussed. A pause. Understood. I ended the call and set the phone down. No one had moved, but something in the room had shifted, not dramatically, just enough. What was that? My father asked. Work. He frowned slightly. What kind of work requires that? I looked at him, then at the paper still resting near my plate, the kind that doesn't get explained over dinner. It wasn't sharp, it wasn't defensive, just closed. My sister watched me differently now, not with admiration, not yet, but the certainty had cracked, slightly. Are you involved in something stable? She asked. I considered the question, not the words, but the intent behind them. Yes, I said. It was the first answer that felt entirely true. The rest of the dinner continued, but without its earlier rhythm. Conversations hesitated before settling. My mother asked fewer questions. My father spoke more cautiously, as if recalibrating in real time. No one mentioned the notice again. I didn't offer anything else. Whatever they had glimpsed wasn't enough to rebuild their understanding of me, but it was enough to unsettle it. And that was all I wanted. I left before dessert. At the door, my mother hugged me longer than she had when I arrived. You can always come home, she said quietly. I nodded, though we both understood she didn't mean the same thing I did. Outside, the air felt cleaner. I stood there for a moment, not rushing to the car. Just noticing the absence of their expectations, they still didn't know who I was. Not really, but for the first time, it didn't feel like something I needed to fix. Some things stay hidden because revealing them would only invite a different kind of misunderstanding. And some distances, once chosen, don't need to be closed to prove anything at all.